Welcome to The American Spectacle, a podcast dedicated to the art of American dance, exploring the past, present, and future of dance, and discussing ways to re-engage communities, young people, in the most American of all arts, dance.
Before we begin, what if one drink could carry the weight of a lifetime? The Dressing Drink, a memoir by Thomas King Flagg, peels back the layers of an orphan's legacy, blending beauty, heartbreak, and hard truths into one unforgettable story. The Dressing Drink, available now wherever books are sold.
Hi, hello. I'm Thomas Flagg, the host of American Spectacle. I'm a longtime supporter and arts advocate of the art of dance. Today, I have the distinguished pleasure and honor of introducing you to Alexandra Wells. This means so much to me. There are very few people that I hold on as high a pedestal as I do Alexandra. And you may or may not know that the dance world is very difficult, very challenging, very rigorous. And there have been a couple of people throughout my life that I've held up as what I call the dance angel. That if they weren't in the business, I'm quitting. But because they are in the business, they inspire me. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming through a hurricane.
Harrowing experience, yes. I'm here.
Was it a good flight? Was it bumpy?
It was a bit bumpy, but the pilot did a great job, I got to say. They really avoided the big thunderstorms.
Well,
so they did a great job.
Good.
And,
well, I'm glad you're safe, and I'm glad you're here. Just going back in our relationship, I know you from Juilliard many moons now, many, many moons. But maybe you could talk a little bit about your background and how you came to be your life as a dancer a little bit, and your life as an educator. Where do you want to start,
How far
hon?
back should I start?
Yeah, just hit the high points. The high points.
Okay. Well, I guess I would need to start at the beginning. And my mother was a dancer. She danced with the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo for 2 years. I don't even know if you know this, Tommy. So yes, she danced with the Ballet Russe, and she was more or less forced by her parents to give up her career because she had a boyfriend. And they thought that having a boyfriend equated getting pregnant.
Were they from New England?
They were from New England.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And so she was forced to stop dancing. Started a small little ballet school in the basement of their apartment in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Married who became my father, and put him through Harvard Business School with the dance studio. And let's say it wasn't a great relationship, but they did have 2 children. So I was raised essentially by a single mom, 2 children.
I know the story.
And was always in a ballet studio 3 days a week, not because I wanted to be. I actually hated it. I wanted to stay. We moved around from farm to farm, renovating houses. She also did that, 1800s houses. And so 3 days a week, we would go to the ballet studio, and we'd be there from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 9 p.m., class after class. And I had to go, so I would sort of I would forget my clothes mostly, and learn something about dancing, but not well, let's say. And so, yeah, we lived on farms, and I really wanted to stay home and play with the other kids on the farm, and not go to the dance studio. So we fought a lot, but there wasn't a choice. So I went to the studio with her 3 days a week, and growing up in that era, didn't have any kind of social media and we didn't have a television. So I didn't know what dance was, other than going to this ballet class I didn't like. because my mom was teaching essentially.
Mhm.
And so one day, one of her colleagues in another town said, can we take your daughter to see a performance? There's a recital happening in a town adjacent. And I think, it would be fun for her to come with us. My mom said, sure. I went to a performance, a little recital. And during the recital, there was a soloist couple from Boston Ballet. And they danced Bluebird. And I came home and I said, that's what I'm doing. That's what I want to do in my life. And my mother said, absolutely not. You will not become a dancer. So then ensued a fight for many, like my teenage years of, no, you'll never make it. You're not going to be good enough. I don't want you to be a studio rat. You need an education. I don't want you to waste your life on this dance thing, because she had had such an experience herself. So it was a very fraught relationship. But eventually she gave in. She gave in eventually, and I ended up, going to Boston Ballet and taking classes, and subsequently at 16 was invited to join the company. They did that in those days. 16. And I was an apprentice in Boston Ballet at 16, not because I knew how to dance. Honestly, this is really telling the truth to the younger generation now. I got into Boston Ballet because I had the legs and the feet, and I was pretty. That doesn't work anymore. You have to have a lot of talent. You have to have, more than talent. You have to have technique. And I just fell in love with it, and then just continued on. So my first company was Boston Ballet. I was there for 3 years. Following that, I went to New York and danced with Dennis Wayne's dancers for 3 years. And those 3 years, we toured all over the world, mostly Europe. And he and I danced this pas de deux of Norbert Wiesak's called Belong. And we danced it on every gala, every performance. This duet was sort of a famous duet for the company. It was a lot of overhead lifts, and I was the spaghetti girl up in the air somewhere. And it was a beautiful pas de deux to rock music in a silver lame unitard on point, my hair down and all frizzy. My hair was down below my butt.
It was Dennis.
It was Dennis, so we were doing this duet everywhere, and we were invited. This is kind of a moment. We were invited to the UNESCO Gala with Alicia Alonso, was celebrating her life and her work, and we danced on the program, and it was successful. I got to sit with Alicia Alonso in the wings and tell her what was happening on stage, because she couldn't see. She was without vision. And so I sat there and would tell her how her dancers were doing. I think they did pas de six, and all the guys were doing. And she knew that they had completed 6 pirouettes. She knew that they'd fallen out of their double tour. What happened, Alexandra? He didn't make it. He didn't make the arabesque. She knew from the sounds on the floor. It was really remarkable. Anyway, the following day we got into a car, Dennis and I, and were to drive across France to join the company in the south of France to continue the tour, because we were on a tour of Dennis Wayne's dancers. And on that ride to the south of France, we stopped, as one does, and had lunch and had a bottle of wine with the driver of the car. Maybe we had 2 bottles of wine.
As one does.
As one does in France. I lived there for 15 years. So, and woke up very suddenly. We were flying off of the road, did 2 full turns in the air, and landed in a cow field on the roof of the car. And I was in the back seat and had done this. I had no seatbelt on. I'd done roofs, I'd done the whole 360 of the car. And Dennis was okay. He got out and pulled me out of the car. He thought, I think, that it was going to explode. The driver was fine. And I was paralyzed from the waist down. And in a very, very small town, I think we waited an hour or so for an ambulance. We were in a very tiny little town. And that sort of took me out of dancing for about a year. Stayed in France for a while until I could walk, and then came back to the United States. We had no health insurance. We were not covered by insurance when we went on that tour. So there was a legal fight that I lost. And it put me in a lot of debt, let's say. But recovered in the United States, had a great physical therapist, plural, and just back to taking, if you're a dancer, just back to taking bar and the first 2 center exercises. Had not put my point shoes on, really the beginnings of coming back and then in pain and taking a day off. And like in this, and I get a phone call from the director of somebody I'd met in France and said, would you be interested in coming and guesting with our company, Ballet Théâtre Français de Nancy? We'd like you to dance with Rudy Bryans, who was that time a star in Marseille with Roland Petit's company. Would you like to dance? We'd like you to come and dance Obad of Serge Liffard with Rudy Bryans. We're going to do it in Nancy, and then we're going to do it in Paris. And would you be interested in doing this guest position? And I said, yes. And they said, when would you like me there? On Monday? And I said, yes. But that's my life too. I'd say yes to things, the most absurd things. Anyway, so I said yes, and I got there. And once I got there, I was like, oh my God, what did I say yes to? It was a national company. There were many people that had extraordinary training. And I just looked in the door when I got there. I went, oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm not qualified to be in this company. And I wasn't really in shape. So I did that stint with them. It all came out somehow. A lot of crying. Wow. I cried a lot. I called my mom a lot. And but got through it, stayed there 3 months. We did the performances. We did the performances in Paris. It was wonderful. Rudy Bryans was difficult and wonderful, and loved him to tears. And we had a great time. And then they asked me to come back and guest again. And they asked me to come back and guest a third time. And then they introduced me to somebody in government official when we were dancing at the Champs-Élysées Theater, because they wanted to try to get me a full-time work permit so I could come and stay at that point. And I met this man before the show. And I guess he pushed for me to be able to stay in France and be legal and not just as a guest and come in and out.
Right.
And then I stayed in Nancy for 12 years as a principal dancer. In the time that I was in Ballet Théâtre Français de Nancy, of course, we traveled around the world. We went from Japan to South America. We did every country. And during that time, I had the honor to dance first with Rudolf Nureyev for 6 years. I was his partner for 6 years. Cool. And the rep really revolved around him and what he wanted to dance and who he wanted to dance it with and so forth and so on. And we were like his touring company. And at that time, he had other companies too, but we were one of the principal ones that were going to the different countries. And I will say this was at the very, very end of him doing this. This was one of his last tours like this, that touring years that he did before he took on the Paris Opera Company as director and choreographer. Actually, before The King and I also, because he did The King and I before that on Broadway. So he did King and I, and then he got Paris Opera direction, and he was dancing a bit there and choreographing, and then he got ill. So we were like the last company he was doing these like world tours with. And we started out, this is a fun story, but we started out, I got there, I was dancing Miss Julie of Birgit Kolberg with him. And that's really why I was brought in. And that's what we were going to dance, and that has stories too, but are really dramatic stories. But he was principally dancing with these other women, these beautiful dancers, beautiful French dancers in the company. And little by little, he asked to dance with me, their roles. And I really pushed back. And I said, no, this is Françoise's role. She's beautiful in this. And he said, I didn't ask you that. I asked you if you'll learn this for tomorrow night. And I said, but, but and no, and we're not in the vocabulary. And so I said yes. This was in the Teatro de Colón in Argentina. I spent the night in the top floor of the theater in a small studio with a videotape, learning Spectre de la Rose. We ran through it in costume right before the curtain went up, with the orchestra warming up in the pit. That's how I went into that piece.
But at least there was videotape, which for much before that there was none.
Yeah. So that's how I learned that role, and that was my premiere in that role. And
so what was that, 1970?
Oh, no. 80s, like 80.
Because I was thinking about videotape
86,
and it just
86,
didn't exist.
Something like that. No, we had the the large.
No, I know, but for many years,
Yeah.
if you were going to set about it, it would have to be labanotation or. Right. So that's very cool. That's the good news of the story.
Yeah. So we did that, and I was so afraid that the other dancers in the company, this is also interesting, were going to be really angry at me because I was like taking their roles, not because I wanted to, but because he was kind of insisting upon different things. And I went to the dressing room and told Françoise. She said, like, thank God, because it was really.
Rigorous.
It was challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It was challenging. I could go into extreme detail,
but
it was
I want to tell you how much, because as long as I've known you, I haven't heard a lot of how the necklace was strung. So now I'm getting a sense of that for the first time. And then Juilliard.
So between that, I went through 3 directions in Nancy. The first one being with Jean-Albert Cartier and Hélène Trénine, and really loved the repertory. That's when we were dancing with Nureyev. Second era was Patrick Dupont was named. I can't forget Patrick, So I was named director, and I danced with him for 4 years around the world as his partner. And Patrick was appointed director in Nancy, and wasn't there so much because he had a huge career, and he was singing, he was acting, he was dancing, he was doing a lot of things. So he wasn't always there. So he appointed Ulysses Dove.
Oh, yeah.
As a resident choreographer. And so we did 4 pieces of Ulysses during that tenure of 4 years. And Ulysses was there all the time. I mean, Ulysses was our director. And created 2 new works on us and restaged Vespers, which was barefoot, put it on point. The girls in the company nearly killed me. Because I said it was possible. Sure, why not? Jump on chairs and point shoes. Absolutely. Had no anyway, but I was always game to try things. So we had Ulysses work for 4 years, and that was really pivotal in my life. It really changed many, many things.
What was his most famous ballet that was done here in the United States?
Most famous? I don't know whether it would be what we call Visagiste, which they call episodes as well. Or if it's Vespers, it might be Vespers.
But
Bad Blood was also done on Ailey.
Right, I'm thinking of the Ailey, but I just think he was
The
this.
Front Porch of Heaven, that was that was after my era.
Right.
The Front Porch of Heaven that he did for the Royal Swedish Ballet,
yeah.
which is a gorgeous work.
Gorgeous.
Red Angels.
Red Angels
he did for City Ballet.
City Ballet, yeah.
Which is a
what a comet
spectacular
he was.
duet.
He just,
Yeah.
And then this is the history that we don't remember, that we don't, maybe it's on tape somewhere, maybe we can see it somewhere, but to live what you're talking about, not only from your perspective, but from the audience perspective of being able to be part of that, to watch Red Angels for the first time was unbelievable, and there's so much extraordinary accomplishment, artistic accomplishment between the 60s and the 80s that we don't even recognize because we weren't there in the theater. But it was amazing. It was beyond amazing. And it was so great to have lived through and seen all this growth. This is the American spectacle I talk about. What we accomplished as Americans, the level of who we were. And I wonder where it is now. And after COVID, I'm hoping to find a path back up. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm hoping for. But I've interrupted. Sorry.
No. That's great. So that was the period with Ulysses, and it really was pivotal in my life, both personally. I just loved the man, and it was tough. It was tough. I think, anyway, it was tough. The end was tough. But I feel really lucky and blessed to have danced Vespers, actually. I did the lead in Vespers quite a lot and shared it with Nancy Raffa.
Oh, I know Nancy.
And we shared the angel and the solo girl. And it was really, I think, for both of us, a pivotal moment in our careers. And then Patrick followed Nureev's trajectory and got the Paris Opera direction. So it seemed you needed to go through Nancy to become director of the Paris Opera. And so Patrick left for the Paris Opera to direct. Of course, he grew up there. So that was, a normal trajectory for him although not all dancers become directors, but he was director there for a bit. And we had Pierre Lecotte that came and took over Ballet de Nancy. And Pierre Lecotte was a great historian, a great dance historian, and he was very, very well known for restaging in the big classics and the forgotten classics that nobody had seen. So for Nancy, the first thing that he came in and did was Giselle. And the goal was to restage a Giselle that would be exactly like the first Giselle. He even went as far as to go to a competition, a dance competition in, I believe, Copenhagen, and hired a 16-year-old girl who looked like the original Giselle, like the sloping shoulders and the black long hair brown long hair.
Who was that? Fanny Elsler?
Her name was Maya.
The original, the famous original Giselle was.
You're putting me on the spot.
Okay, good. Well, if there's anyone I should, it's you. Okay.
Putting me on the spot. I'll get it wrong. I could give some names, but I'll get it wrong. But so he restaged this Giselle with the same costumes as the originals and like all the detail. And I had red hair. This is the strangest story. I had red hair, so he said I couldn't be in the piece. I said, well, what about Myrta or one of the other roles? Right. I don't look like Giselle. You're right, I don't. But I could do Myrta. And he said, oh, no, you don't look like that part at all. And I was like, okay. I could dye my hair.
Yeah, right.
Lady Clara, I'll do it every time. But he wasn't having it. So he cast me as Bathilde. And that pushed me over the edge, let's say. I mean, Bathilde is a great role. Everybody needs a Batilda in their life. And we did Giselle after Giselle after Giselle after Giselle. That was the primary thing that we danced that year. And then the repertory went up for the following year, and there was another big classic, and there was a lot of Giselle. And I went, this is not, after Ulysses Dove, no. This is not what I want to do with the end of my career. I was in my 30s, and I was like, I want to do something contemporary now. I don't want to do these. I was never like the classical,
right.
Swan Lake person. Right. So, switch. So my husband at that time was in Lyon Opera Ballet. And the resident choreographer at Lyon Opera Ballet at that time was Maggie Marin. I was infatuated by her. It was avant-garde dance theater.
Right.
And I wanted to do that. I was like, that's what I want to do now. I really want to explore that. And I knew her a little bit through my ex-husband because he'd been in Lyon Opera Ballet for a few years, and I've been traveling back and forth to see him. And I got, they hired me because I was a dancer that they knew from Nancy, and I wanted to leave and wanted to come there. And they were very nice and said to me, I remember Yorgos Lukos, who was the director at that time, and Maggie sat down with me and said, Alexandra, we want you to be aware. You're going to join the company. We're going to leave on a national and international tour 3 weeks after you arrive. Everything is cast already. There are 3 casts of every piece. There will be no time for you to go into anything except Cinderella. And that's the only thing that you'll go into, and it will be, a group role. And I'm like, I'm fine. I need to get out of Nancy. I'm good. I'll be fine. I am resilient. And that was not the case. I was not so resilient. I was used to dancing 4 ballets a night. I was used to fairly dancing, important roles or in small groups of like soloists. And so to have a 25-pound mask on and a stuffed body, which is the characters that are nobles, and be on the 4th floor of a dollhouse for one of the roles I was doing was really hard.
Why?
I couldn't see. You couldn't breathe.
Couldn't breathe.
You were just looking for your partner by the color of their socks because you couldn't see anybody. You didn't know who they were. They were all in masks.
Yeah.
So you were like looking at sock color to know who your partner would be in the next scene. So it was. I did that tour, and then when we weren't doing Saint Leon, we were doing a mixed program with Bill T. Jones and Ralph Lemon, which was really interesting work. But it was all work that I would have needed a rehearsal. Mm-hmm. And Yorgos said to me, he said, Alexandra, just be in the wings and learn it. When you know it, just ask us for a run through. And I went, Ralph Lemon stuff's all upside down. It's partnering. I'm like, how on earth am I going to just do a run through?
From the wings.
So I spent that whole tour, thinking about it and thinking, this is probably not for me. And we got back to Lyon, and we had a season with Angelin Préjocage, who did a piece for us called Romeo and Juliet. It's a very beautiful piece. I love this piece. And everybody is a Juliet. Like all the female presenting people are Juliets. Same wig, same costume, same steps, but you're all facing in different facets. A little bit Cunningham configuration of you do A, I do B, then I do BB, you do AA, but you're going to face there for A, then you're going to turn around and face for B. You rehearse with a sheet of paper in your hands to learn your track. I thought I was going to go out of my mind, and I did. I had a nervous breakdown. That was the end of my career. So I remember one night I came off stage. We were at the auditorium in Lyon, and we performed this Romeo and Juliet. I came into the dressing room. I took off my makeup and I went, that's it. I'm not coming back. I'm done. It was the end of the run. And I locked myself in my apartment for 3 months.
Wow. Was it a nice apartment?
No.
Okay.
It was not. It had no windows. And it was a real juncture. I am kind of a black and white person in this way. So, and I did end up going back and finishing out the end of the contract, just taking class in the morning and then going to my therapy. Mm-hmm. And knew at that point my husband and I were not doing well. We were splitting. I knew I couldn't stay in France. Well, that's a whole other thing, but I couldn't stay in France because if you're not from the Paris Opera School and you haven't done the CA, which is a degree, I'd done the DE, which is another degree, but the CA is highly dependent on language, the French language, I would say, in how you deliver each exercise and the musicality of it. It has to be very fine French. Wow. It's beautiful. And I knew I would never be able to get to that level of French to be able to pass the CA. And unless you had a CA, you weren't going to really work in any of the conservatories. So I knew that with the DE that I had would be limited teaching possibilities in France. And so I decided to come back to the United States with no job or anything. I don't know. I had a boyfriend.
That's a start.
That was a start.
Yeah.
And came back.
Well, we're
out of time.
We're pretty much out of time, but I think we may have to do another one with you because, of course, I know you from the most recent part of your life, which is a good big stretch of time. But your ability to manifest, so everything that you've just talked about, which is remarkable and extraordinary. And what a story. I mean, what a story, no matter how you slice it. But taking all of that knowledge and that practical experience and all the rest, and having been able to manifest Springboard, what you did at Juilliard, I'm going to ask you one question before we go. How many students in your lifetime do you think you've affected? Ballpark. 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000?
18 years at Juilliard, 3 years at l'École supérieure de danse in Quebec, and then Springboard at 120 people a year. I mean, there's affecting because of the platforms that I create and the classes and the techniques that I teach. And then there's affecting like on a personal mentorship level. And then there's affecting people by getting them jobs and connecting them.
Splitting too many hairs.
Those kind of have different levels.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. You're answering the question by not answering the question, which is it's a whole heck of a lot of people. Yeah, I would use another expletive, but And just that power of affecting that many people moving forward with a specific standard, which you hold like no one else's business, I think is the place that I'd like to stop for now because you'll get a chance to talk tomorrow too. God bless you. I love you. What a great pleasure it is to have you here alive.
Yes.
You made it through the storm.
I made it through the storm.
Great. Alexandra Wells.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please join us for upcoming podcasts where we'll speak to some of the most consequential voices in the dance world. For more information, you can go to my website, thomaskflagg.com. In addition, you can find me on all social media platforms. If you want to learn more about me and my unique journey, please check out my book, The Dressing Drink. It chronicles my early life and efforts to better understand my parents, both entertainers in their own right. I'm Thomas Flagg, and thank you for joining us today.